What's debating my almost certainly hopeless opponents of a fascist monster? I'm Robert Evans. This is normally Behind the Bastards, the podcast where we talk about the worst people in all of history, but we're doing nothing like that today. Today is prep for the election podcast that Cody Johnston, Katy Stoll, and I will be launching in 2020, the worst year ever. We are doing an episode covering the Democratic debates, which could not be further from the premise of my show because none of the people involved in the debates, regardless of my issues with them individually, qualify as true bastards. But it's an hour or so of free content. So, like, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
Are you going to whine at me? I already gave you 2 episodes about bastards this week. Like,
this is just
deal with
this
it.
Is icing on the cake.
If you whine, he can't hear you.
Yeah,
so.
I can't hear you. Like, complain more. But please do listen to the podcast. I love all of you.
Yeah, we just thought we would get the ball rolling on our eventual show.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out exactly what it's going to be so that we aren't just throwing another nonsense political podcast into a crowded field of misery that makes everyone hate themselves.
Much like the candidates.
Much like the candidates in the debates themselves. So this is a little bit of a refining process. It's kind of like if you're shooting missiles at the moon, you're going to hit Mars a couple of times.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's just hard.
exactly,
It's hard
yeah.
to hit the moon with a missile.
You're going to get a few Beddos up there.
So
you know?
this missile might hit Jupiter. We might hit Europa. We might hit the sun. We might hit Manhattan. Either way, the next missile we fire will be closer to the moon. I don't know why I'm comparing this to missiles.
I love it, though.
Thank
I'm
you.
going with it.
Jupiter or Manhattan?
Yep.
Okay.
Classic 1, 2.
Those are the options.
Yep. Hey, everybody. One way or the other, you heard either Katy and Cody's intro or my intro, and now the actual podcast is starting.
Yeah.
And I arrogantly grabbed leading everyone in and stole it from you both.
It's disgusting, honestly.
It is. I'm a monster.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. This is going to be fun. For everybody's listening who might be confused that listens to both, we're sitting here, we're recording 2 different intros for the episode. It'll cut together.
Yeah, but we're beyond them. You know, we're here. We're in it. We're with you now.
All right, let's talk about the debates, guys. I want to know, first off, who surprised you? Who were you discounting and then you came into it and you're like, wow, man, if anybody, that person was interesting.
I mean, I'm going to be honest.
Hickenlooper, I know.
Castro's name was not at all in my mind.
Yeah.
I wasn't even really aware that he was running.
Yeah.
And he performed very well.
Yeah, he really did.
If for debate 2, I would say the person who surprised me, who was not, I mean, I knew she was running, but she was not on my radar. I think Gillibrand did a lot better than I expected.
She absolutely
Yes.
did.
Yeah.
She didn't earn my vote.
No.
But
Right.
she did better than I expected. I was completely blown away that Marianne Williamson was even on the stage. I don't know how that went over my head.
She got a few
Really
moments
good
in where I was
answers,
like,
yeah.
oh, that's actually true.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't really be here,
Yeah.
but what you're saying is true.
But you're not wrong.
You're not wrong, but it's like, what are you doing here?
And I would almost like it if in the future for debates we had the candidates and then like one person who was popular in America and who just came on to like drive home an issue.
Yes.
Like, okay, yeah, everybody, but like the ice caps are melting and the world's dying. Like maybe address that a little
bringing
bit
it
more.
back, because the moderators definitely aren't going to do that.
No,
Not
because
Chuck
they're all
Todd.
bad at
So
their jobs.
not Chuck Todd for sure. So yeah, having someone be the actual voice is like, but like, here's what we're really talking about.
I think one thing we've learned as a species is that regardless of our ability to put human beings on other planets, to create electric cars, we have not invented a human being who is capable of moderating a political debate. It has never happened.
Do we need robots?
Yeah, robots maybe, or Werner Herzog.
Well, Werner Herzog could totally do
Herzog
it.
could fucking do that job.
He would do that silently.
Yeah.
Like, he could command
Just his
that. Yeah,
eyes.
just like
Yeah.
his presence would do that. One thing it would help probably is fewer candidates and more hours. But we can talk about that.
Would you have preferred 5 candidates a night for 4 nights?
I would have been fine with that more than what is currently there. I would have preferred even then like 10 candidates for 4 hours or like even longer. Like I have no problem with
a longer debate.
Like that's why we're here. We have literally 24-hour news channels.
Yeah.
And people are like engaged in that kind of thing. And we want to know that, oh, whoever is going to be can like stand on a stage for 6 hours and talk about the issues.
And we live in a world where people routinely will spend a dozen hours in a weekend binge watching television just to chill out. Like, I feel like we can devote 10 hours to debates about the future of our species.
You'd think so.
It seems reasonable.
It seems like that.
It's difficult because watching these... you don't really get a clear sense of people. These are the most important, so they say, points,
theoretically, the most important people in the world right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, we're not getting that many opportunities to get to know them outside of Twitter, outside of the headlines that we see, the random clips that are passed around. And you don't really have the time to hear anything of, like, it's a quick soundbite, 30 seconds.
Yeah,
you know?
I think in general it's kind of like, I don't think it's exaggerating necessarily. I think it's kind of shameful what they have done.
Horribly so.
And like,
disgusting.
The idea, like, that's fair. Yeah, I didn't want to oversell it, but I do. It's a shameful thing that the media is allowed to happen. It shows that they didn't learn anything from 2016. But if they did, they learned the wrong thing. It wasn't even just 10 candidates over 2 hours. It was 10 candidates over 2 hours with 5 moderators.
Yeah, that was
and like
wild.
a bunch of commercial breaks. The whole thing is just like
there weren't that many commercial breaks, but
there shouldn't have been any. Like there did not need to be
moderator switches. It's not that long. If it was a 6-hour debate, I'd be like,
yes, 1 hour. We don't like 3 people for 1 hour, 2 people for the next hour. Is really
is that just because everybody wanted to be involved, or all that? Because they're from different networks, I guess.
It must have been something like that.
It's mostly MSNBC, isn't it?
No, I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. Either way, it was unnecessary, and like no one. That position isn't like, ooh, they got like the best question in.
Well,
like,
I will say that I thought, especially on night one, Savannah Guthrie did a good job of.
She could have done the whole thing.
Holding people to task. I know, exactly. And I'm one of the people that like Rachel Maddow. Not obsessively.
She's fine. Whatever.
She's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that she's an entertaining.
She made some bad
person.
mistakes. Re the Mueller report this year.
I completely agree. I don't watch her show
Yeah.
nearly as much as I used to, but I think that she is good at breaking down stuff, and she's like a really good on her feet. Anyway, this isn't about Rachel Maddow, and I like her fine, but I could have just stuck with Savannah Guthrie.
Yeah,
she was
she's a great job.
following up really aggressively and keeping people on point, saying like, answer the question. But
how
anyway,
could you expect a single human being to function for 4 hours in a week?
That's a good point.
It's impossible. No one can do that.
Cut it up. Cut it up. Get more people up there. Oh, I did want to mention this because this is what you asked at the very beginning.
Yeah.
I think Cory Booker also surprised me.
Okay, great.
And I wanted to give him credit where it's due, because I think he's corny as hell all the time.
Corny Booker.
I know. I avoided saying that, but yes.
Well,
Corny
I
Booker.
know. There we go.
And I got delighted to say
I
it.
agree with you
not at all.
completely.
Completely.
He's super corny, and I don't think he comes off as very authentic. But I thought he did a really good job, surprisingly so.
Right. And I guess the limited time, I wanted more time to see what he had to say. Like, all of them.
Everybody,
Because I don't
there were 10 of them and they got
But like what we were talking about, like the idea that he even brought up, like African Americans, trans women in America are
the idea that he in his very limited amount of time, in an issue that will not gain him a single vote because there's very few trans people. First off, not just said that African American trans women are being murdered at a nightmarish rate, but first off introduced that like transgender people in general are victims of violent crimes at huge rates, and then specified that, and this is particularly a problem within the black transgender community. The fact that he took that time is and I don't like the guy, but is a very significant credit to his person.
Yes, absolutely.
And I give him a lot of credit for that.
I was surprised and kind of blown away, and that he brought it up. And also, like, it's because no one's ever going to bring that up.
I don't know if it's just me being cynical when I see him do that, because I have this idea of him, and I know that he's a politician, and I have fears that he's inauthentic. I immediately go to, are you just saying that?
Someone told him to say that.
Somebody told him to say it. But I don't want to operate like that.
Yeah.
And I do agree. I really appreciated it. And I think it's important to say this and like start saying this on the debate stage, that people start getting used to this being an issue that we discuss.
I hate the Democratic Party almost as much as I hate the Republican Party for very different reasons. Yeah. But it is a credit to the Democratic Party that the issue of violence against trans people came up more than once in this debate. Yeah. In spite, it's not a vote getter. It's an issue they could ignore and not lose a vote. And the fact that it has been made a not insignificant part of at least one of the debates is a real credit to the party. And I'll say that to him. That matters a lot to me.
Yeah, I wanted to say that because while we're talking about this, Julian Castro was the first one to bring up trans women in talking about healthcare and how it's necessary for us to include them when we're talking about women's reproductive rights. And I I clapped. I was sitting by myself and clapped.
It's so rare to see anything that even vaguely resembles at a distance, if you squint and take mushrooms, courage in politics today.
Yeah.
And that's I would call standing up for trans people from a mainstream politician courage. And it shouldn't be, and it's horrible that it is, but it is.
And we're thrilled to see those steps being taken.
Yeah, I think it's important.
Even though this was kind of a cluster fuck.
Yeah.
We can say that on here because it's a podcast.
Let's call it cluster pee-pee.
A cluster pee-pee. Since this was a bit of a cluster pee-pee, I do feel good about a lot of the stuff that we've talked about. I do feel like even the candidates that I'm not thrilled about, people throwing out stuff. Especially on night one, I liked seeing, again, Julian Castro standing up there saying, I'd like to see everybody else on the stage, the other candidates, commit to. And and that happened a couple times in different capacities, and we saw it happening. And that is the beautiful thing about this part of the process, seeing where we land on certain issues.
I would like more and longer debates where they all radicalize each other. And by the end, Joe Biden is wearing like a Chairman Mao shirt and shouting about taking the factories back.
And that's like, I'm not maybe
that Chairman Mao, but I would enjoy that from a viewer perspective.
And we saw a little bit of that, and it was really cool. And I think that we've talked about leading up to this that like the winner of the Democratic debates is like, well, what does the platform end up being? What are the issues and plans that people gravitate towards? And if you have 10 people for 2 hours and 5 moderators, it's really hard to get to that point.
Right.
And it's actually kind of amazing that there were a few moments like that.
Yeah.
You have 4 hours. You are able to say, you get 2 minutes to talk about this. And if someone's like raising their hand, you can actually say, okay, actually have a conversation instead of really forcing it and trying to get the sound bites in and so on.
For the purpose of intellectual masturbation, I would like to talk about how we'd like to see this happen. And for my own self, what I would enjoy seeing, we have these same 20 candidates. If I was picking the rules, I would want 5 of them to get 2 hours each, 4 nights in 1 week. And then 6 weeks later, you look at who they are and you pick the top 10. And then you have a 4-hour debate with the top 10.
Yeah.
And 4 hours is a long time. People might say that's unreasonable, but like one of the things you vote for, and you should be voting for in a president, is their stamina, their ability to function and focus for fucking 4 hours of a hardcore debate. That's important.
Because we currently have a president who can't do that.
Yeah.
And like I think a lot of people that were in the debate tonight and last night couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, how many lines can Beto say in Spanish and English?
Oh my God.
Just one based on...
Just one.
We gotta talk about that
now
moment.
It's time to talk about that. Did everybody gasp?
Everybody gasped, and that was the most likable Cory Booker's ever been. When he gave him that, are you fucking kidding me look?
It was amazing.
That was perfect. Yeah.
But then didn't Cory Booker speak?
Then he
later?
did it.
He did it later too, right?
That look, in hindsight, that look had even more meaning because we knew he was going to do it too.
You did it first, you fucker.
I think they all did it more reasonably. That he did it an issue where it was like, no, you're just repeating your point in Spanish for no reason.
Yeah.
And that's weird.
Yeah, it was weird. And he brought it out really early on.
Yeah.
And really it was like,
his
this
first
is
question,
me. This is the thing I'm going to do. And it did have nothing to do.
And he made sure to be the first person to speak Spanish on a floor with a Latino candidate.
With a Latino candidate.
Which
That's
is like,
the part that was painful.
Come on, man.
It's not that I disagree with the...
No,
Spanish.
being bilingual is great.
Wonderful
thing.
Love, but obviously this whole debate isn't in Spanish. You're doing something pandering. And out of the gate, the white man that stands on tables, that everybody rolls their eyes at, how little self-awareness does he have?
And if it had been, if it had still been the first question, but it had been like about immigration reform or about something directly tied to that, as opposed to just like, I'm going to answer a question
and then I'll do it again.
And then I'm going to do it again in Spanish. And it's like, what are you, Beto?
Like, right.
And he didn't really answer the question.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't...
No, he did not answer the question in either language.
And he ran out of time.
He's also just super fucking
I'm not a fan of Beto O'Rourke.
Not a fan of Beto.
He didn't win me over here.
I don't care for him. But... yeah, Julian Castro really did, and I had zero expectations for him.
Yeah, I was not aware he was really running, to be entirely honest, at the risk of decredifying myself.
There's too many people
to fucking keep track of.
Yeah. I absolutely still cannot.
I didn't even know the Oprah book lady was going to be there.
Right, that was a surprise.
Every once in a while, they would, towards the end of the debate, they'd go to somebody and be like, wait, have they gone to this guy yet?
I know.
Like,
I'm always surprised that John Hickenlooper exists.
That's because
100% of the
He
time.
looks nothing like I imagined.
It's really funny too because it's like there were like 4 Hickenloopers tonight, and there were 4 Hickenloopers last night.
Too many white men.
Like it's just, and it's not, but it's not even like white men. It's just
I
like
know.
a very specific type of guy.
It's the guy that you wind up in line behind at the co-op buying a lot of organic celery.
Yeah.
Like all of them are that guy.
Yeah.
And I have tweeted about this and talked about this before, and some people are like, that's racist when I say specifically this type of white man. And I'm only doing that because I'm describing literally who it is. If it was a white man, like a Bernie who is a different kind, and I'm not a Bernie person, but per se.
I like him.
But like, you know, something unique, something different. But these guys are very hard to differentiate between in these 30-second increments, in these little snippets that we get.
Yeah.
And they're not bringing something new. And every time a new one of them threw their hat in the ring, it just frustrated me a little bit because we've got all these unique candidates that are really exciting.
Well, that's the other thing, because I think that they're not necessarily, like, it's not like they're all the same, but like when you have such a limited amount of time, it is hard to differentiate them. And there were a few moments, I'd say like last night and maybe a couple tonight, where I'm like, oh yeah, that guy's right.
Yeah.
That's a good point that guy
It's a
made.
good point.
Wow. Who the fuck is he?
Yeah.
Where did he go? Oh, well, never see him again.
Oh, now he's gone.
Right, but if you had like more time,
It'd been
then, like,
nice if this had time to breathe.
come back to that guy, and now I actually know who he is and what he stands for and how he's different from all the other people on the stage. Not just that was a good sentence I heard from somebody.
If number one, news networks were not entirely a for-profit endeavor and existed for the, call me a crazy fucking communist here, betterment of society rather than shareholder value. And if also the Democratic Party was more competent, having 20 candidates at this point in this, it could be a real strength. Could be a great chance for diversity of ideas, for real debate, for an ability for people to have a real choice and to hear a lot of issues and to have issues that wouldn't otherwise get pressed in a campaign be pushed in just based on necessity. I could see that being a real strength. It's not the way they focused it.
Right.
Instead, it just hurts the entire cause of sanity.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating to me.
Right,
Yeah.
and then just like all the like, all right, we're gonna do it real quick down the line, and then they do the one word answers or 5-word answers, or whatever, and it's like it's just this onslaught of information you can't
and nobody
really
answers
parse.
the question.
Nobody
the
answers
right
the
way.
question.
They were like, I will say, they were like one part. I think it was just Hickenlooper, who was just like fucking climate change is
Yes,
my one.
there were
issue.
a few people
where it was like, okay, John, like you got me there.
It's so interesting because that stands out. Whereas people that say, well, go run off and start listing, shoving as many words as they can into that 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But the people that are concise and answered did stand out in those moments.
Yeah.
I
again-
hated everyone's answer to the question, who is the biggest threat to America?
Oh,
Because in a sane debate, my opinion is there's one answer. And it's, the biggest threat to America is Americans. It will always be, it has always been, and there's no one else that comes close.
Run for president.
Yeah. I'm sure I will.
I agree.
Well, then
it's
you have
frustrating.
like the just these media twerps. Chuck Todd bothers the hell out of me, and he has forever, and he didn't change my mind.
Yeah, he's
but
not
like,
good.
He's not good.
at his
he didn't
job.
win you over.
He didn't win me over.
Now-
Not good at his job.
Quick question, Cody. How many times do you think he could buy and sell you?
Oh, as many as I could
Like
start.
1,000
I could start
times.
counting now, and by the time this episode is done, that number would be less than the actual
You know
number.
what the best thing about capitalism is the meritocracy.
I believe that.
I believe that thoroughly.
in that, and I believe that you think that too.
Big fan of the meritocracy, which is really a thing that happens.
Chuck Todd deserves everything he has because he's good at his job.
Fantastic at
A
his
real smart cookie.
Genius.
The first time, last night at the going down the line, like, what do you think about that? And then they do their quick answers. He's like, this is my favorite part. This is the good part. You know, this is the part where you really get into it.
Worst
What?
part.
What? Chuck?
No,
The fuck?
I will say the best part of these two debates, and I can't imagine even another competitor, is Kamala Harris, who I don't like because she's a cop, really fucking grilling Biden.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
That was really good.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
That was fucking great.
Yeah.
The best moment of night 2 for sure for me was that, and emotional about it.
Yeah. You could tell she was damn near at tears when she finished speaking.
Well, right,
Was
because
fighting for composure.
You can tell, like, it really affected her, and she really meant it. At the same time, like, she was going to do that no matter what. Like, she was planning on, like, we're going to talk about this on stage. Yeah, that's what we've been talking about for a long time. Of like, I can't wait for Joe Biden to be next to people who actually talk to him about this stuff.
I was a bit Bernie didn't really go after Joe Biden. We were expecting that, but I'm thrilled that Kamala did.
Yeah, it was so good.
And again, this is one of those things. Like
he did not look her in the eye. He did not. He gave her a glance, and then he looked away. He could not do it.
And he got mad.
Yeah.
As a journalist, your goal is to try to be to look at things from an objective point of view. As a podcaster, your goal is not that. And I find myself torn between the two. And I feel like I feel like I need to emphasize I very much dislike Kamala Harris. I do not like the idea of voting for a prosecutor. I think her job, the job that she did for years, is fundamentally an evil to the world. She fucking nailed that moment. That was perfect.
And I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Those are all of my reservations against Kamala. And when I talk to people about it, some people don't like that I don't like Kamala. And
I'm capable of giving fucking credit where it's due.
But, she's so good at that, and she's so good in all of the Senate hearings.
Yeah.
She's so, and that's the prosecutor in her. She's concise, she's smart, and she's aggressive, and that showed tonight.
And one of the things that I really liked about that moment, because she is concise, she's very polished, she's very good at speaking. I liked the raw emotion, especially at the very end, and I really, everyone find the YouTube video of this and like really look at after she delivers her last word, what you see on her face is like something you get so rarely in national politics is like real emotion that moved her body.
Yeah.
Like, and that's important to see.
Yeah,
and
I really liked to see that.
Seeing that it really affected
humans.
her, and she had to sort of take a moment and like,
as it should have. Yeah, as it should have.
Well, because that's also like that's like a scary thing to do on a stage, and
really
like
is.
really
it
raw
shows
and open
character and courage, and I was impressed by her as someone who doesn't like her.
Some people would skew that as being emotional in some kind of way.
Those people are dumb. I want to know that my president has human emotions.
Yeah.
The most I've ever been sympathetic to Donald Trump is hearing that his daughter described to him what chemical weapons did to kids and that he had a gut reaction to it. I want that.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't do anything effective about it, but like, you want to know that like the president's a human being who can hear something and be like, well, fuck it, we got to take action. This can't be allowed to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I agree with you all completely. I think it's funny, someone pointed out, I think this is perfect, that Kamala took a moment to call Joe Biden racist.
She said, I'm not calling you racist.
But she did.
But and if you guys need reminding, this was about the issue about busing students and how
states' rights.
How
Thanks, Joe.
Biden was against busing children into different districts.
If I'm not mistaken, she was supposed to have had a 30-second timer on that.
They
let her go.
Nobody even thought about interrupting that.
I love that.
I was
like, well, she blew past 30 seconds.
For a while, I was like, are they going to stop her? Because that would be really, like,
that was well done to say, like, well, this is the moment that we need to let breathe.
I feel like Walter Cronkite's ghost would strike you down for trying to stop that line of questioning.
That would have been the most embarrassing moment of the night if someone tried to stop her from.
Let her speak.
It's like, God, Chuck, shut the fuck up.
Yeah. But he didn't.
But he didn't.
To his credit.
To Chuck Todd's credit.
Fucking Chuck Todd was like, this needs to happen.
To Chuck Todd's credit, he didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So the best thing he's done is not anything. But I think also it's really funny that in response to that, so obviously Joe Biden got really, really mad.
He sure did. He sure did.
So she called him racist, and then in response he called her a cop.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, so like you're just like living Twitter out right now, like you're doing it all.
I would have loved it if Joe Biden, the only thing he could have gotten to get my support after that is if he'd called her a cop, put on a black mask, and then spray painted the Antifa
then you would be on board.
That would have been amazing. Just fucking Joe Biden goes like full Banksy.
Yeah.
I think he really did a bad job tonight.
Oh yeah,
no, he wasn't great.
I mean, after that, like there was no going back for him because it made him so mad, I think.
And he should.
But even before that.
And again, in terms of like theoretically things that he could have done to earn my support, if he'd just been like, "You're right. I came up in a different era.
Yep.
I learned things that were wrong, and I was wrong then, and you are right now. Let me explain why I still think I can do a good job as president."
And that's human.
That's why the night before when Tulsi talked about this, and we've got the various opinions about Tulsi Gabbard, but like saying like, I think a lot of people watching can relate to growing up in a conservative household and growing and changing your mind. And I was like, that is exactly what you say.
Like, as someone who I hate Tulsi Gabbard, I also grew up hating gay people because of how I was raised. And I identified with that statement, and that was a very good way for her to answer
That's how you deal with that. That's how you address it, because it's true.
Yeah.
Or
people change.
And hiding from it is a real big mistake.
How Buttigieg handled that question about the shootings in his town and the in the
Started
police
out
chief.
strong.
At the intro to it. Yes, I completely agree. But that was human and honest, and him saying like, I don't know.
This is a nightmare, and it's very difficult.
We couldn't get it done.
I couldn't get it. That's what he said.
I couldn't get it done.
That gutted me a little bit. I was like, not gutted me, but hit me in a way of like, I just so deeply appreciate.
It was a genuine response.
And this is where, so I'm getting a little bit like off here, but this is where I get to like the fundamental issue of the still lurking ghost of authoritarianism that is at the core of every system in the world that's still left over from the days when we were ruled by kings. The fact that an acceptable answer to that question wouldn't have been Buttigieg going, we couldn't get it done. This is a nightmare. Nobody knows how to fix this entirely, and the only answer will come from sustained, long-term, nationwide dialogue to figure out how to fix this problem, because it's not a problem that can be solved by a person at the top. It's a problem that starts from the bottom and percolates up. Like the solution starts from the bottom and percolates up.
That's another reason why Marianne Williamson was like, well, she's right. That was the one when she said that, I was like, why are you derailing this? This is weird. And then she got to it, I was like, she's right.
Yeah.
That it's exactly what you just said.
Wait, what moment was this?
When she was talking about how like it's not just. I mean, it seemed like it was sort of getting into like a holistic medicine sort of thing.
She went to some weird digressions.
But
and stuff,
the idea of, and she also called like universal health care and like whether I have Medicare for all and that's like superficial solutions, which I don't necessarily agree with. But like the idea of just like,
I don't agree with that.
Right. But like, why do people get sick? Why do we have these problems? What are the roots of these problems?
But that's an important
conversation. We have to be able to talk and really explore what causes the problems that we're making policies to solve the symptoms of.
No, I know that she doesn't think she's going to win, and I don't think. I
think she's in the. I think she's the Inslee of the second debate. Inslee knows he's not going to be the presidential candidate. He just wants to make sure climate change gets talked about. Which
they're all doing the Gravel thing, or like what Gravel wanted to do.
And it might take a while for that to seep in, but it is true. What are the other things that are factoring into this bigger problem?
Can I throw in a free ad plug?
Oh, sure.
Try sandwiches. They're great. They're just great.
Any sandwich?
Yeah, any sandwich. Really good concept. Bread and then things in between the bread that are not bread. Great idea. Try a sandwich.
I want to talk about Elizabeth Warren.
Okay. I love talking about Elizabeth Warren.
Are you a couple of Warren bros?
Yes.
I'm a Warren babe.
No.
I am
you're a Warren bro or you're nothing.
Comprehensively planned out and logical solutions to basic problems, bro.
Wild stuff.
You name a problem, she's got a plan for that.
It's not the number of problems that she has plans for. It's that she specifically, the things that she's focused on most seem to be like breaking up big tech, all the fucking Nazis.
I mean, she literally has a billboard that says,
tax,
Elizabeth Warren, break up big tech.
Yeah.
Like, it's so simple.
Yeah. Good.
It's also, real quick, just something that's been bothering me. Because, like, the whole breaking up big tech and that is, I think, an issue that everyone can kind of come together on.
It seems like the right and left are actually
It's a right and the left thing.
Yeah.
It's extremely frustrating to watch that the right's concern about big tech is solely about conservatives being censored.
No, because they would like everyone else to be banned from existing.
Right. Like, I know why. It's just like...
Not the right, but the people who are part of that grift.
Yes,
are literal Nazis in many cases.
Right. Yeah. And like, there's a clear like goal and mission from a lot of them. But like, just like you see Ted Cruz, and he's like in the hearing, and he's like, conservatives are being censored. It's like, no, that's not the reason. Like, it's just very bizarre and frustrating to watch.
It's not the reason, because like David Newart, who is like one of the things I do for a living, is anti-fascist research. David Newart is the very best of us, who got banned from Twitter for the fact that his book cover had a stylized image of a guy in a Klan hood on it because his book is about racist groups in America, and he got banned from Twitter for weeks. Like, David Newart's not a conservative. The problem isn't that Twitter bans conservatives. The problem is that Twitter's decisions as to who to ban are completely inconsistent, have nothing to do with their actual written rules, and are often done by random robots and then justified post facto by individual human beings trying to avoid, like, making a bad news cycle.
Yeah.
And that's dumb. Yeah.
Agree completely. We're talking about Elizabeth Warren. I'm sorry for
I do want to talk
veering
about
off.
Elizabeth Warren.
But
Okay, so in terms of her debate performance, I feel personally that she stood out, you know, different phrases, heads and shoulders, miles ahead of all the other candidates. She is the person that answers the fucking question.
That is true.
She answers the question.
She answers the question.
She doesn't pivot. You see,
God,
so
why
many
is that a
people
positive?
are like, I know,
That's
it's
so
so
heartbreaking.
basic.
Yeah.
But everybody else will take it and pivot to something that
Yeah.
they feel comfortable talking about. It makes me, even Bernie, he did it tonight, makes me crazy.
Yeah, he did it a couple of times.
You just
Yeah.
avoid talking about a racial issue to start talking about, you know,
Get into your comfort zone.
and it's
he's got the message that he sticks to.
and I
very
get it. I get
Yeah.
why they want you to do that, but it's not authentic, and you're not answering the
Well, and
question.
every, there were so many times when, like, one of the moderators was like, okay, I'm going to give you 12 more seconds. Do you want to answer the direct question? Like, I love the wording.
Yeah.
Because that really,
Do you wanna
that really hammers it
actually
home.
do the thing we asked
Do
you
you
to?
want to answer
Yeah.
the direct question was said a lot. Like, the phrase direct question. I
And
think it's
not
important
to
keep doing
Elizabeth
that.
Warren.
Not to
Not to
Elizabeth Warren.
Elizabeth Warren. And you mentioned, you know, that moment with Kamala. You see her humanness in that
Yeah.
moment. But I felt that with Elizabeth Warren on most of her answers, that I wasn't just looking at a politician. And we talked about this earlier, how maybe she didn't always have the canned line answer.
No, she did. So if I were to, like, evaluate Elizabeth Warren's whole performance, her first answer and her last answer were both very polished,
Yes.
very well scripted, what a progressive politician would say in a movie. And between them, she talked like a normal person having a conversation with you, which is why I would say from a presentation standpoint, she did not come across the best, because she came across as a person who is thinking through answers and having a conversation with you, trying to answer them, which I don't know if it is a weakness or a strength, because Donald Trump comes across as a drunken farmer. And like, and he won the presidency. That turned out to be great. And we're all fucking exhausted of people who sound like politicians. And she sounded like a politician, like a good politician, at the first and last answer. And in between, she sounded like a person trying to find solutions.
Yeah. And that resonated with
seems
me.
positive. But
Yeah, I would say.
But I
Right,
understand,
right.
like, it's just important to note that is very true. And different people are going to take that in different ways. For me, I found it refreshing.
Also, she taught special ed, and as a person who taught special ed and was bad at it,
I didn't know that about you.
I did, and was bad at it. My job was mostly to get punched in the face. But having literally gone to war zones and been shot at, I can't imagine a harder job than teaching special education. Anybody who dedicates a chunk of their life to doing that, except for me, because I was bad at it, is a hero.
Your mother does, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Works with at-risk kids
Fucking
at
amazing
elementary
job.
school.
And I
Thank
would
you,
love
Mickey.
to have a president who understands that. Yeah.
And I want to talk a little bit about her. I don't have the answers to this, but maybe you guys do. I've seen a lot of pushback, or some amount, to Elizabeth Warren online, specifically about her stance on Palestine, as well as Medicare for All. Do you guys know anything about that?
I've heard about the Medicare for All. I haven't heard it. What the fuck is she saying about Palestine?
I don't know.
I have not heard
I
anything about
actually
that.
don't know. I don't think that she has a hard stance against Israel, is I think the point.
I don't
I would
know.
have trouble imagining anyone having a hard stance against Israel and running for president in the United States.
Right, that's the
Yeah.
thing. I think that seems like everyone is the same. Like no one is making that an issue for them. No one's trying to make themselves stand out.
Yeah.
It's like,
But
actually,
I've seen
I think
a lot of people, and people even have been DMing me, being like, "I'm concerned about your support of Warren because of her
Really?
stance in Palestine." And
What have they specified on what they're concerned about?
she doesn't seem to have a lot of empathy towards Palestinians and stuff like that.
Then I would consider that an issue. Yeah.
And
yeah, that's what I will say, and what I can say without being more certain about her specific views is that, like, I'm sure she has more empathy for Palestine than Donald Trump.
Yeah. That's where,
They all do, yeah.
And I guess that she was for Medicare for all and then seemed to take a step back.
Seems like she is
but now she's all in.
She seems in. She waffled on it. I think she mainly waffled on it because it's just not one of the core issues that she's focused on. And
I mean, she literally said, "I'm with Bernie on this one."
Yeah.
So
fine.
I think we have to take her at her word for that.
Well, and it's one of those things where, like, part of what you're voting for is not what the candidate espouses and what they believed all their career, but whether or not they are a sane person who could be pushed.
Yeah.
You will not push a Republican to make. It's like with climate change. Joe Biden, who I don't like, if he is elected president, doesn't have a good policy on climate change right now. Doesn't have a great history with climate change. But I do firmly believe could be pushed by a Democratic electorate who cared about climate change to embrace effective policies to address it, purely because he wants to win re-election and because he's a political animal. Donald Trump will never do that.
I believe that he could be pushed during this process. I believe that we could get him saying X, Y, or Z.
And I think he'd go along with a Democratic Senate and House. He will not take any step on his own.
He won't take any step on his
he's
own.
not gonna
And that's
stand
why
up. He's not gonna
I don't
charge
think that's
there.
what we need. I mean, I think I'm preaching to the choir here. But
I'm not talking about what we need, but just like if we're talking about should you vote for Biden if it's Biden or Trump? Yes.
Oh, for sure.
Well, but I do feel like that has to be, like, it's the kind of thing where it's like there's a lot of criticisms to lob against everybody on the stage, and there's a lot of reasons to not like Biden. But if he was president right now, we would have a lot of the same problems we have, but children wouldn't have died in concentration camps.
Yeah.
And that's not a nothing to me. That's not nothing. And also, trans people wouldn't be banned from serving the military.
Also true.
Yeah,
I'm mostly
other things,
with Biden. I'm mostly worried about post Biden, and who the Republican candidate is after.
No,
Biden.
I hate the idea of him winning the election.
I
because
think it's
I think
trying to be
that
a
reasonable.
huge step back
a-
for us.
I just think that the response to Joe Biden would be someone smarter than Donald Trump, who still embodies the same kinds of things.
Yeah.
And
I don't
that's
think he-
Totally
super
reasonable.
fucking scary
Totally
to me.
reasonable.
I just think for how terrible these years have been with Donald Trump, the sort of positive that you can take away is that everybody's riled up in a way and paying attention in a way that we've maybe never been before. And if any of these big, broad changes that we dream about happening are going to happen, they're going to happen now because everybody's engaged. And I just feel in my bones that getting Biden in there would be a huge step back from all this.
It will very
Oh, yeah.
much bum me out.
It would bum me out in a way that I actually fear a lot.
Yeah,
and I will vote for him.
I don't think he's going to make it.
It seems like he's been bleeding support at a rate that makes me think it may not be sustainable. That said, again, as somebody who, like, you've got the part of me who's like trying to approach this as what I believe in, a part that's trying to approach it as a journalist. He has really fucking solid support among the Black and Latino community.
It's so interesting.
And it's the same thing with Hillary Clinton. This is what I argued with Bernie people a lot during the election. Is it's like, no, she objectively won a larger chunk of the non-white Democratic vote than he did by a substantial margin. And that's not because of the DNC. It's because she devoted a lot of time to campaigning in those areas, and campaigning to those communities. And you have to acknowledge that.
I'm curious how true that will be for Biden.
I am curious how that
especially
will
after tonight, but like moving forward.
Yeah, we're very early yet.
He's I think it's just been a lot of name recognition and a lot of the like.
He was Obama's VP.
Yeah, the institution and just like the idea of Joe Biden, and then as time went on, more and more stuff came out about him that should have been talked about maybe when he was trying to be the vice president, all that kind of stuff. And now that you have actual people on stage introducing those things, I don't think he'll hold on to that.
Yeah, that's my hope.
Because like he did not do well tonight.
No, he was not the standout.
No, he looked real bad tonight.
Let's talk about gun control. We got to talk about gun control. Both debates did. I didn't like what anybody had to say.
Yeah.
Which is usually the case when I hear Democrats talk about gun control. Swalwell's the guy I like the least. One of the issues I have with him, and I want to make it clear to the listeners that as a guy who owns a shitload of guns, I've never voted on guns. I will never vote on guns. I do not make any of my voting decisions based on people's gun policies. I make because like If I were voting on that, then I would be throwing all of my gay and trans and non-white friends under the bus. I would be throwing the climate under the bus, and I'm not going to do that. That said, when Swalwell made the statement that, like, I don't care about your handguns and your shotguns, 90% of gun crimes and murders are committed with handguns and shotguns.
Right.
Yeah.
You look at all of the top 10 guns that actually kill people in this country, all handguns and shotguns.
Did he say he didn't care about them?
He said, I have no issue to go. I have no issues with that. I want to go.
Which is
I didn't
just
catch
the
that. Publicized problem. Because I'm not going to say mass shootings aren't a problem, but like really small chunk of gun crime actually. Really small chunk.
Yeah.
Which doesn't mean we don't address it, but like...
The assault weapon focus is always...
well, because that's an easy way out. That's an easy thing that I can
scary.
say.
They look scary, and it's easy to...
And that's an easy talking point. Like, okay, we can all agree that this is unnecessary.
Well, no one wants to say, no more handguns.
No one wants to say what the real issue is, that is really fucking intractable, difficult, is that there are a couple of simultaneous truths. Number one of the single most important laws of this country, built into its nervous system, its fucking spinal cord, is the right to bear arms. The vast majority of gun deaths in this country are suicides. And no restriction of firearms, save a total ban on gun ownership, will stop people from being able to kill themselves with guns. That's the issue that nobody talks about because there's no real way to address it. Mass shootings, people do discuss, and I think they tend to get wrong. But like, that's one of those things. And this is one of the issues, again, where I have with people like Swalwell who talk about like gun buybacks, where it's like, you realize there's a Constitution and there's the Supreme Court and there's there is a body of law, and like what you are saying might not be legal.
Right.
And in fact has been categorical bans on weapons after DC versus Heller, like, are unconstitutional. And again, there are states with individual assault weapons bans. So you could argue, but those assault weapons bans, like California has an assault weapons ban, and I was still able to own an AR-15 and an AK-47 because their assault weapons ban did not ban semi-automatic weapons. They banned certain features on weapons, which didn't actually make it. Because again, the most recent mass shooting we had in California, where we had like 12 dead, was the Thousand Oaks shootings, was done with a Glock handgun, I think. I really wish we had people talking about guns in the Democratic Party and how to effectively legislate them and restrict them that understood them. I also wish people understood the fact that Buttigieg served in the military does not mean he knows a damn thing about guns, because some of the dumbest people about guns served in the military. Ask a soldier. That's my rant. What do you guys think? Sorry, I monopolized that there.
That's what was here for. The suicide thing is a real problem and concern, and it's one of those things that is linked to so many other problems. It kind of gets to what Marianne Williams was talking about.
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
How do we, what are the things that are causing this? And you don't hear a lot of people even talking about, like, when you talk about universal health care and Medicare for all and those things, like, mental health is important, and like people don't a lot of people don't have anyone to talk to, and if you give them that outlet, it helps with a lot of I don't know, like the idea of like, well, no, if you give everyone the mental and physical care that they need, then a lot of these problems, not immediately, but like over time
you'll see.
It's like Switzerland. Every adult pretty much has an assault rifle in their home.
I did not know that.
Yeah, because everyone who serves in the military, which is like most of the adult population, maybe I'm getting the exact, but a lot of people, and they take their weapons home with them. It's a G36C, which is a pretty potent gun. Also, I had an editor at a website I wrote with who was Swiss, and when she got pregnant, she and her husband both got like 6 or 7 months of paternity leave, which is just part of like the package that they get. Like, and I think, there's a lot of other stuff at play as to if you're trying to wonder like why the Swiss don't have mass shootings and we do. Because one thing that the right brings up a lot when they talk about gun control is like, look at Switzerland, they all have machine guns and like they don't commit nearly as many crimes as us. It's got to be a separate issue. They're not entirely wrong. It's wrong to blame every mass shooting on mental health because that unfairly stigmatizes mentally ill people. But it's also wrong to pretend that like the fact that most like therapy is something that has proven benefits for virtually everyone who engages in it, and the vast majority of Americans could not possibly afford to engage in a therapist.
Reject the concept of it, but also couldn't afford it even if they didn't.
That's a problem. And it's a problem in a place where also, while you can't afford a therapist for the cost of 4 hours of therapy, 100% of us could buy an AR-15.
Yeah.
That's an issue to me as a guy who owns
How
an
much
AR-15.
does an AR-15 cost?
You can get them as cheap as $400, $300,
Unbelievable.
very cheap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's like a month of therapy.
Yeah, maybe less. Yeah.
But
like 2
none of
weeks,
our
really.
but none of our conversations about guns include this.
No, they don't.
And that's
Well,
what's
and then when they do, it's sort of in a reductive way
Yeah.
that like doesn't really,
well, it's similar. I mean, this is a transition, but all of our conversations about immigration rarely include talking about going into Latin America, going into the
That was
the best
amazing.
fucking part of the debate.
great.
Yeah.
Bringing it back
More
to the
than
debate.
one person
It was
addressed
beautiful.
that.
It was like, we kind of fucked up Latin America, what with the wars we caused.
Unbelievable. I mean, I was truly, we all
I was
were watching
really
together.
impressed by that.
it was especially impressive that like it did seem like the majority of people on the stage knew and said that.
Yeah, for all that I and all of us, I'm sure, will continue to shit on the Democratic Party in frustration for the next year and a half, kudos on both really focusing on trans people and how America fucked up Latin America.
Yeah.
It was
really
great.
is a credit to the party.
Even Biden was like, by the way, like we gave like millions
By the
and
way.
hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, that
and,
sucked, right?
yeah, and then they stopped it, and like here, like it started to
it helped, actually.
reduce the number of people, and then here we are.
Maybe like, hey guys, you remember like the Marshall Plan? Like the single most effective thing that our government ever did, maybe in its whole history? Maybe that again?
Maybe.
No, Germany and Japan don't seem like they're doing well. How many? They've both reverted to fascism so many times since 1945.
Well, it's an easy thing to revert to.
Constantly.
Just do it.
So many
Right,
more
so
wars
all
Germany has
the
caused
wars,
since we rebuilt the country.
That famously still fascist state, Germany.
I remember how Japan has continued to invade China for the last 80 years.
Yeah, we all remember. We all remember the things that happen
Constantly
in
invading
real life.
China and not making incredible products
I love products.
like the Prius
And services?
and services. Speaking of which, here's a no, we're not doing that.
No
that's
more
not
ads. We're
gonna
done with
happen.
ads.
Yeah.
No, that was a great surprise.
I was very surprised, actually. Like you,
I also like
you don't expect that.
Klobuchar on the first night.
Klobuchar. Klobuchar?
Klobuchar.
I think it's Klobuchar.
She does remind me of like your friend in high school, her mom that you never wanted to be stuck alone with.
But every
she'd be
now
like-
and then you get stuck with her and she actually says something
She's
where like,
not a bad person, but she
might
makes
have
you
a couple of
nervous.
ideas.
like, where are you guys going tonight?
Yeah. Oh, wait, no, Klobuchar. I'm sorry, I was thinking of Gillibrand.
You were thinking of
No,
Gillibrand.
Klobuchar was nonsense. Yeah, you're right,
Klobuchar
you're right,
is
you're
like
right,
the
you're
short
right,
brown
yeah.
hair.
Gillibrand,
Gillibrand
No,
has some good
Gillibrand
moments.
seems nice.
Yeah.
Klobuchar is the one that eats with a comb and is mean to her.
Gillibrand,
right?
She eats salad with a comb, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a pinch, which is fine. She's resourceful.
Gillibrand is the mom who like you think that you wouldn't want to be alone with, and like
But-
you kind of dread it, but then you do, and she's
No,
like,
she's a cool mom.
You ever smoked weed?
Yeah, she's a cool mom. She's the one that get high with
Yeah,
you.
don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I'm not slandering her or spreading rumors.
All
just
I'm
has that
saying
vibe.
is 100% if you walk up to Christine Gillibrand, she will give you weed.
Free.
But
Free weed, absolutely.
like
Everyone
that-
take that to heart.
last night didn't have as many. I don't remember them talking about that aspect of the immigration problem.
Oh, no, I don't
But I
recall
did like that
yeah.
Klobuchar brought up the economic imperative of immigration, and that is another thing that I don't see people talking about enough. We're like freaking out about everything that's happening in the border, and nobody's really hammering down the point that we actually are in a situation where we need immigrants. We
Yeah.
have a dearth in the service industries.
What are old people going to do without them?
I mean,
Quick question.
What
Yeah.
is are all of our companies? My mom I grew up with my mom is a caterer, had a catering company, and we relied. And she had all sorts of different like Hispanic immigrants that worked for her, and she paid them well, and she gave them health care, and you know, and not that my mom's some amazing person, but they were it was an imperative. Nobody else would take that job.
Katie's mom 2020.
Your mom is some amazing person.
She is an amazing person.
Katie's
but
mom,
I'm just
2020.
saying, we needed them.
Yeah.
She needed them, and they were better than everybody else.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of the things that eternally frustrates me, and that frustrates me with Bernie Sanders, who was a guy who I, on an emotional, personal note, when the rest of my family went for Trump and broke my heart in 2016, one of the people who raised me, my aunt, who was a lifelong Republican, voted for Bernie Sanders. And the fact that, because she was like, I think he's the only honest man in the election, and he will always have a piece of my heart for that. I am eternally frustrated with his insistence that borders are important. And I know this is a ridiculous hope. I will never have a party in either side of this country, left or right, who feels the way I do about borders, which is that they are a cancer destroying our entire species, and that until we get past the concept, we have no hope of long-term survival. That's just me being a wild-eyed radical. But I wish Bernie Sanders had said, fuck all borders, thrown a smoke bomb and skateboarded out of the room.
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
That would have been sick as shit.
Stole Beto's skateboard.
Yeah.
It's like, give me that.
Fuck
Yeah.
Punched him right in the jaw and like right out the fucking door.
Oh, I'd love to see that version of the debate.
Yeah.
And then, insulted him in Spanish or something. And
Called him a fucking puta.
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to make it to the next round? How do we eliminate people? Do we know?
I think isn't it just like about the amount of popularity they have?
Polling and stuff, right?
Yeah, it seems like that would be the only sane way to do it.
Yeah.
All I want to see, I guess, Warren, Bernie, Biden,
Yeah.
Kamala,
Castro.
I do want to bring up one other thing
please,
that frustrated the fuck out of me. One person, unless I'm missing my guess on the first debate, because I missed a little chunk of it because I was in transit while I was listening. I think one person in both debates brought up white supremacy. And it was fucking Joe Biden.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, that's disappointing.
That's disappointing. I mean, good on you, Joe. Like, we're not trying to be like one of those fucking nothing but nihilistic podcasts here. So I'm going to give people credit where it's due.
Right.
He brought it up. And everyone should have.
Yeah.
Because of all the dead people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. There's an alarming lack of that.
So he gets credit for that in my book.
He gets credit for that. I don't think he is capable.
I don't think he has any kind of plan. Yeah.
I don't think he has a plan. I also don't think he's really capable of talking about it in a way where he really understands it.
No, I don't think he does.
And like, I think it's kind of indicative that when like his first question, I forget even what the question was, but like one of the first words that came out of his mouth was Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's just...
Oh, the literal.
His whole thing is just like, the Charlottesville and Donald Trump and it's bad and the soul of our country, but like he doesn't really know where it's coming from or like why or
he had Charlottesville and a couple of my friends were in the ad that he put up and were very frustrated.
Yes, I saw that.
Like, and I will say also in credit to her, she didn't fucking bring it up in the debates and she should have, but Elizabeth Warren has suggested plans and made it a focus of her campaign.
I did not know that.
Yeah, she's talked about that like white supremacy needs to be a problem and we need to start prosecuting these people as domestic terrorists, which we're not currently doing.
She's got a plan for everything.
I think she's incredible.
She should have fucking said something.
Yeah, she should have.
I mean,
that's my big bummer about Elizabeth Warren. She's like, how do you not do that? It's a fucking debate, Elizabeth. Talk about it.
Well, they don't have very much time.
They don't have very much time, but that's kind of a big one.
I do agree.
Yeah.
I do agree.
That's disappointing she didn't bring it up.
Yeah.
But the Joe Biden thing just seems like it's kind of lip surface and like it's like, oh, I know that people care about this and it's like a hot button emotional topic that I can bring up as opposed to knowing where it comes from and what to do about it.
And it feels insincere.
I would call it lip service if he wasn't the only fucking person who mentioned it.
Sure.
I can't
for sure.
call it lip service because no one else said anything.
Right.
So like, Joe did.
He brought it up.
That's something that I'd like to keep an eye out for the next one.
Yeah.
Are there other things that you guys want to see people talking about in the next debates?
You know, the most frustrating moment for me was when they got asked what they would do if they could deal with one problem, and like two people brought up climate change, and like someone brought up like guns, and someone brought up about like income for families and stuff, and it's like, yeah, man, both gun control and improving family income are important, but like you know the planet's burning up.
It's
like
the only thing that
there's
matters.
no other answer. But the most important thing is to stop the environment from collapsing.
Yeah.
Nothing else is that important.
It's literally the thing that I need.
Yeah.
I will not vote for you unless you've got...
Acknowledge
it. was
it.
just Beto and Warren, I think, who said climate change.
Yeah.
Well, that was the first debate.
It was the
first debate. The second one, some people said it.
Yeah,
but
it was
I don't even
fucking
want
Hickenlooper and whoever else.
Right.
I do not like the answer like, well, the first thing I'd do is rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement. Yeah.
At least at least that's acknowledging climate change.
Great,
Yeah.
that's
Right, but
acknowledging
that's such a horseshit
that's not
answer.
what we need. We need much more than that.
Gillibrand was the only one with a really good answer on like that.
Yeah.
So speaking of what people want to see, one of the things we're doing here, you know, we're trying to provide all of you with an effective and useful podcast series about this election that keeps you informed and hopefully helps not just drive interests but relieve stress and provide some value to people trying to navigate what will be the worst year of all of our lives, 2020. And we want to, you know, not just talk about what we thought about this election, but also because the people we assume are listening to this are the folks who like us the most and the folks who will be the core of the audience of our new podcast, The Worst Year Ever. We want to open this shit up to your suggestions about what you want to hear covered, what you want to see addressed, what you want to see us go into, because there is a crowded field of political podcasts, and I find most of them deeply frustrating and unlistenable. And I don't want to make a frustrating and unlistenable podcast, and I don't want to make a reflexively ideological podcast, which I hope we've avoided in this, in sort of dealing with the people as they present
You complimented
themselves.
Joe Biden a couple of times.
Yeah, he didn't fuck up everything.
Credit where credit is due.
So we have an email, and we want you to reach out to us if you have things you want us to cover, things you really want to see dealt with, suggestions for how we handle this election, because we're all going to be doing a podcast, Katy, Cody, and I, The Worst Year Ever, where, I think maybe we should give them a little bit of an idea of like what we are currently planning to hit in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you want to, because I've just been ranting myself.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff, I think one of the things I think we all agree on is that we're not going to, we're going to do our best to avoid making it the Trump show at all.
Yep.
And it's not going to be about him. It's not going to be about the things he says or the stuff he tweets about it.
And I like that about these debates also.
Yes.
I love that we haven't talked about him until now.
Yeah.
For the most part, they really avoided it.
Yeah, they avoided making him the focus,
yes.
which was good.
Which is very good. And so we're going to avoid that. We want to talk about what they're actually talking about and the issues there and how they actually affect people and like talking to people and what affects them. We will be going to various conventions throughout the year.
Thinking about stuff
caucuses.
like the SHOT Show, CES, CPAC, obviously like the Iowa caucus.
Right, we'll go to the caucuses, we'll go to the events.
RNC, yeah.
Was it Autism Now?
I think we're going to go,
First?
which is like a crazy convention of people who think that it's not like a normal autism thing. It's like a convention of people who think you can shoot bleach up your kid's butt to cure autism.
Yes.
We want to see how stuff is like those
that.
people are political. I want to know the elections.
Right, you want to know where they're coming from and what they care about, and like maybe how you can bring them back a little bit.
Yeah.
So if there are any issues or groups of people or ideas that you have, things that you'd like to have more insight into that we should look into, we really want to hear your suggestions
and things you can do, and like
So the email is worstyeartips@gmail.com. That's correct, right?
Yeah,
I think so.
I mean, you're the one who made the email. And not tips on how to have the worst year ever, because we know the answer to that.
Right.
Exists in 2020.
No, just your tips.
And it's mixing acid with 2CE. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Now, mushrooms and 2CE, also not a great idea.
Okay.
But mushrooms and 2CI, also not a great idea. But 2CI and acid,
Great idea.
bang.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
But acid and 2CI, bad idea.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
good idea.
We got to a good idea. All right.
I like-
2CI is a rough one to mix with some substances, but a fun one if you mix it with the right ones. Okay. So check out our podcast next year, mixing 2CI with various substances at CPAC.
The show.
Robert's going to be our drug guru on this journey. Mm-hmm. I guess that's the end of our debate.
I think so.
Coverage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's been real fun.
It's been real fun.
Actually, it has been.
Mm-hmm. I've enjoyed this.
This has been great.
It's more than the debates.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the best part.
I want to ask one quick question.
Please, yeah.
Before we move on to the next thing. Do y'all think Joe Biden is a better kisser than Bernie Sanders? Because I feel like Joe has the passion.
Yeah, I think he might be.
I think he might be a good kisser.
Depends on how wanted the kiss is.
That's an important point when we're talking about swinging
absolutely.
Joe. Because Bernie does double consent checks.
Yes.
We know that about him.
This premise is...
He signs a contract
Yeah.
before.
Everybody's on board. I don't know that Bernie's that interested. I mean, I think he's just got a lot going on in his
I'm
mind.
assuming Bernie's down. Like maybe we have some sort of pheromone spray,
Sure.
and so we know that the interest is there.
No, I can't imagine being kissed by Bernie.
You can't imagine being kissed by Bernie.
Or either of them, really. But I think that Joe Biden cares about making sure his kisses are good. I don't know.
I do think Joe Biden cares about that. I
think he does care about that, yeah.
I can imagine being on a beach in Ensenada and like sort of the wind blowing through my hair and like a little bit of sand in between
And
my
then
toes.
he's smelling it.
Sipping no, I'm talking about Bernie.
Oh, Bernie.
Sipping a little bit of like a nice like mezcal, and Bernie Sanders puts his hand on my shoulders and like leans into me and whispers into my ear, Medicare for all. was an achievable dream and works in most of the developed world.
And that gets you
See,
real
that's
hot?
the thing.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I feel like Bernie can sweet talk you. Bernie can get to your soul.
Yeah.
Bernie can get to your emotions.
I don't know
Bernie
that
can.
he cares about sweet talking though.
No,
Bernie.
he mostly shouts. Yeah.
Sure.
I think
Yeah.
it depends on like who you are, you know, if you know, idealistic, strong in their convictions.
Yeah.
Socialist is your vibe.
I think he
then-
can get you going. I just don't think he's like a sexual being.
But I think that Joe Biden probably has spent a lot of time perfecting how to
fucks.
be
Biden fucks. That's the thing.
Biden fucks. Yeah.
And I think that we know that. And
God.
I also think he probably would give a really good shoulder rub.
I will say one thing that would almost make Biden being the Democratic candidate worth it is if the competing hats of 2020 were Make America Great Again and just Biden fucks. Just
We can make those shirts, put
we
them
can
in our
make those
store.
shirts.
Honestly, if it were literally anybody, Buttigieg fucks.
Buttigieg fucks.
Warren
Yeah.
fucks. They
Warren
all like
fucks.
we all fuck.
Except for Beto. I'm not going to believe that.
Beto does not fuck.
Beto
No,
does not
he
fuck.
doesn't know
Yeah.
what he just doesn't know what to do. He's all thumbs, you know.
No, he's just like ranting single words in Spanish like a white boy trying to like shop in Guatemala during a 2-week vacation.
Trying to do a kickflip while he's
Yeah.
I hope he's gone by the next one.
Not a fan.
He's such a dork.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it for tonight. We love you very much.
It's true.
We do.
We do.